Good morning. It's Wednesday, February 5th, about 6 a.m. Central Time. Looking at the precious metals overnight, the futures are trading mixed, with gold hitting another record high, an all-time high overnight after a volatile trading session on Tuesday. So looking at the overnight price action for April gold, the high was 29.01 and a half. That's an all-time high. The low is 28.70.10. Last trading at 28.92.50. About 5-10 minutes ago, we had a little bit of a slide come down here. I think that's as traders wake up, they're seeing where price levels are at, and they're taking a bit of profits off the board, especially in the scope of what's going on here geopolitically and what all the other markets are indicating. You look at March silver, it hit a high of 33.21 and a half. That's higher than the previous highs trading session, and the low was 32.63. That's an area that I'll be watching, because if we break down below these levels here, we're going to look for some value areas to enter into. A lot of people were looking at 31.61, now raising that up to 31.88. So many of you did sign up for our research and our daily reports yesterday. If you don't want to miss out, go to the link that's in the description below and please register for a free trial of our research. So checking on the top overnight commodity headlines here and what's impacting the commodities and markets. Looking at the U.S. equities standing out, you do have the NASDAQ, which was down about 1%, and the S&P 500 was down about 0.5%. So the U.S. equities, they are under pressure this morning as China probes into Apple's App Store fees here and practices. So you got China's anti-watchdog. They're examining Apple's policies, including taking a cut up to 30% of the in-app spending. So regulators believe that Apple has been charging the local developers unreasonably high fees. Then you shift over to Alphabet and AMD earnings. Those US futures, they had dropped due to those disappointing earnings from Alphabet and AMD. And we saw the yen rise, and we also saw gold rise after that return. We've seen treasury yields come down a bit. So it was a bit of a rotation out of equities into some safe haven type of plays. Now, gold futures, they did hit that record high here as the U.S.-China trade war. It stoked that safe haven demand. Gold hit that record high at 29.0150 overnight. So that's going to be an area to watch here. And it really got going quite a bit last night. So also, you do have some geopolitical tensions rising as Trump proposed to take over the Gaza Strip, and that continued to boost gold. I don't know if he was actually serious about that, but it was a joke that obviously the Middle East is not going to take lightly. So you start looking at the silver market. Silver yesterday pushing over that 33 level. A lot of people texting in, a lot of people calling, a lot of people adding to positions on there, believing that, this could be a moment here where we're really breaking out to the upside. So we saw the ETFs, they added 4.8 million troy ounces of silver in yesterday's trading session, bringing the year-to-date sales at 7.63 million. So that was the biggest one-day jump we've seen since about December 23rd. Now you look at the oil market, really volatile session as Trump had indicated he wanted to put maximum pressure on Iran. That's when futures turned around. They were down about $2 on the session, ended up going unchanged and positive on the day. Something to note is that the April contract was gaining value faster than the March, meaning for Trump to impose any of these types of measures, it's going to take a little bit of time here. So we're seeing some of that April-May contract becomes a little bit more favorable if you're playing those geopolitical disruptions rather than the front month of March contract. So something to note when you're putting your position sizing on and you're adding to your positions. Something else here is we did have the API data come out yesterday. That's the American Petroleum Institute. They reported a 5 million barrel increase in U.S. crude oil inventories last week. So that's something else to monitor here. We are expecting 2.4 million barrels in inventories added here today from the previous week's 3.5 million barrels. So copper was one of the surprising one that continues to be resilient and hold higher. You would think that a trade war between the US and China may impact that market because of the fact we've seen base metals, they've endured just such a bumpy start of the year. The trade war fears, the concerns about China and China's growth. Remember, China is the largest consumer of copper. Well, a prolonged trade war could really impact China's economics, their as far as their economy is concerned. So there's speculation that China would have to come in and they would have to step up their stimulus efforts. And that's where kind of there's a backstop expected on some of these base metals. Shift into the agricultural markets. And I only bring this up because it was a very surprising move yesterday given the developments with China. We saw corn, soybeans, wheat all rise here as that trade war was unveiled, and we saw that China's decision not to impose tariffs on soybeans, corn, or wheat is a sign that China may be willing to negotiate with the U.S. here rather than fight back. So we do also have delayed planting down in Brazil, which is helping boost corn prices, and the U.S. is really seen as the only major supplier of corn for the next several months. Now, looking at the technicals on the precious metals markets here, traders are going to look on the gold market as your first level of pocket support would be a wash down at 28.56 down to 28.50, followed by 28.38 and 28.20. So your psychological support, of course, right around the 2800 level. Now, what could get prices down to these levels here is we do have a lot of FOMC speakers coming out. They haven't had that punch that they've had before, but you do have the ADP non-farm employment change here, expected 148,000 jobs versus 122. A big number above that level here could have a quick setback in the gold market. You're going to have your services PMI and your final services PMI, as well as your trade balance data. So quite a bit coming out on the docket here as far as data, and a lot more data here tomorrow. Looking at the silver market, I think your first area of real interest is 32.50. That's a pocket pivot support. A break below that, it's going to be the 32.05 down to $32. Now, the aggressive short-term traders that are looking for a larger washout are raising their buy orders up to about 31.88. That's at old resistance point, now becoming a new support level. Any kind of break below that level there could test that 50-day moving average at 31.10, and below that is 30.66. So if you have any questions, remember, if you'd like to open up a futures trading account with us at Blue Line Futures, send an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. Takes about 5-10 minutes to complete an online application. And if you're a QEP, we're going to start sending out on Friday, we should be sending out the results of the Global Opportunities program here for the month of January. You'll be surprised at how good that performance was. And then also we'll get you out the 3-year track record on that as well for our managed programs here. So you got any questions, give me a call, 312-858-7303. Remember, futures and option trading, it does involve risk of loss, and it may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.